how quickly the seasons seem to change here in the UK. I'm all wrapped up here in the woods. We're into the end of November now, moving into December next week. I know in the States you have Thanksgiving, and that was last week, I believe, and I found out a little bit more about what Thanksgiving was. I really didn't know, to be honest. I was ignorant of that holiday festive event that you have in the States, if of course you are indeed from the States. Here we are coming into the Christmas season, and with all the things that entails, holidays, maybe time off work if you're lucky, family perhaps, presents, meeting people, sharing food. In the past that was certainly my Christmas, not so much now moving forwards. I think I'd like to talk here about the Zen mind, or the Zen master's mind. How, if you enter that space, the world unfolds in front of you. And specifically, thoughts. This is a common theme here on this channel. And there's a reason why I keep returning to this idea of thought, because it can define us in ways that are negative and produce difficulties where no such difficulties exist. This is, I suppose, a discussion around avoiding unnecessary suffering. And so this is this idea of the empty mind. And of course, there's no such thing as an empty mind. Well, one could argue perhaps if you're unconscious or in deep sleep. But in our day-to-day lives, it seems as though the mind is full, not empty, and it's full of thoughts and thinking. Here I'd like to perhaps make a distinction between thoughts and thinking. So in this silent mind, shall we say, clearly thoughts arise, but they don't necessarily lead to thinking. Now, here I'm not talking about the pragmatic and necessary thinking that we need, say, if we are working on the engine of a car, or we are deciding how to hang wallpaper, or doing some DIY or programming, or any other activity that requires our concentration to achieve a short-term goal or aim. The thinking I'm referring to here is the sort of thinking that leads to worry, anxiety, and puts you in a place of fear and defenseless feeling, becoming defensive, becoming constricted, wanting to control what may or may not happen, or ruminating over what has happened. So here the distinction is between thought and thinking, and I would suggest that the silent mind, the master's mind, who lives in a state of present moment awareness has thoughts, but they are not linked or chained together. So in this space, your thoughts are unchained. What I mean by chained or linked together is that the thoughts form the story of you as an individual, constricted, egoic self that has to control life and perhaps fears change. And goes into that story and lives it as a reality. So the master's mind would be perhaps filled with thoughts of the same number and even the same type, but they are not linked together to reinforce the story of the individual self. So they are unchained. And then the thoughts arise, have their moment, but there's nothing that they can stick to. There's no hooks for them to cling on to and give them a solidity that reinforces the story of you. So there's a freedom then from the pattern of thoughts producing thinking, and that thinking being negative and becoming embodied in anxiety, stress and worry, which then manifests in the world of form as behaviour. And so there's an uncoupling right at the beginning. In fact, it's clearer and more precise to say there isn't a coupling to begin with. So the thought isn't chained to the next thought, and then spiralling you down into that rabbit hole of worry and concern, building up the story of you in a negative way. There isn't a coupling at the beginning. The thoughts arise, and if nothing is done with them and they don't become part of your story, in other words, they're not linked together in a chain, then they have no power over you. You remain present, and that isn't an effort to remain present. That is the default position that you are in, awareness, presence. The thoughts take that awareness and that presence and that silent mind and link together to make the story of you, and you create that linkage. Where that pattern originates from is a whole other discussion, and we can go into psychology and counselling in terms of finding out the experiences that have shaped the way you think, but the original thoughts are free and spontaneous and don't necessarily create the illusionary self. They have to be linked, and so this is the position of the master, the silent mind of such a person would recognize and see the thoughts, but there would be no connection between them. You wouldn't be joining the dots and creating a picture that isn't there. They are just events in present moment awareness. If you like the content, leave a thumbs up, do comment or ask any questions, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Thank you.